we have a very eminent panel for this. I request Honorable Mr. Justice Madan Lokur to kindly join the panel. Mr. Sasikanth Senthil, member of the Lok Sabha from Congress. Mr. Ashok Lavasa, former Election Commissioner of India. Ms. Anjali Bhardwaj, kindly come. So, thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Each speaker is requested to speak for 10 to 12, 14 minutes, 15 minutes. And we'll have a question and answers round towards the end. I'll now hand over to Dr. Vipul Mudgal, but before that, just a quick brief on him. He is the Director of Common Cause, known for its high impact PILs and initiatives. He is also a trustee of ADR. He's been a journalist and academic in India and abroad. He has worked as the resident editor of Hindustan Times in Jaipur and Lucknow, and India Today correspondent in Chandigarh, South Asia editor of Asia Times in Bangkok, a BBC journalist in London and Delhi. He got his PhD in media studies from Leicester University, UK, as a Nehru Centenary Fellow. He also worked as a visiting senior fellow at the CSDS, where he founded the Inclusive Media Project and the Publics and Policies Program. He conceived the collaborative status of policing in India reports for humane and accountable police. He was awarded the Regal Faisal Democracy Fellowship at the International Forum for Democratic Studies, Washington in 2020. And he works on the intersections of media, democracy, and political violence. With that, over to you, Dr. Vipul. Thank you.
Thank you, General Verma, for a very generous introduction. Thank you, all the guests. The session is the impact of Election Commissioner's appointment procedure on the electoral credibility. Now, this is something which is very, very current. It is ongoing. Even today, in Parliament, there is a discussion around this. We have this issue going on from the Constituency Assembly debates. It's older than the democracy of India. Dr. Bhimarao Ambedkar, the architect of India's constitution, he was in favor of keeping the executive influence away from the appointment of election commissioners. And he was very clear about it. And in fact, I'm glad that the proceedings of the Constituent Assembly are in the public domain. And we know that in the end, after a long discussion, after in fact a series of long discussions on how the Election Commission should be insulated from the political executive, the Constituent Assembly left it to the wisdom of Parliament. And at that time, I think the nation building and free and independent India with new kind of dreams and aspirations and of course all kinds of anxieties, we thought that this is best left to parliamentarians. After all, I mean, these are the people directly elected by our people. And then we saw that the decline of democracy in many ways started. In 1991, there was a bill brought in Parliament in which they fixed the appointment procedure of the Election Commission, and in which they said that the salary and allowances of the election commissioners and the chief election commissioner would be equivalent to a Supreme Court judge. Now, that was very thought out thing. I mean, they could have done more than that. They could have also fixed perhaps the appointment procedure, but they left it at that. But even that was quite important because they were given a level which was above the executive in every sense. And I think that it continued for a long time until 2023, when there was, as a result of a public interest litigation, the Supreme Court of India came up with an excellent order in which they said that the appointment process of the Chief Election Commissioner and the election commissioners should be free from political executive, in the sense that it should be more broad-based and it should be more multi-partisan. So, and also independent of the political executive. So they formed a committee, and that selection committee was of the Prime Minister and the leader of the opposition or the leader of the largest party in Lok Sabha and the Chief Justice of India. And we know what happened after that. Within 6 months, in fact, in less than 6 months, Parliament passed a new bill, a new act, in which the name of the Chief Election the name of the Chief Justice of India was removed, and any cabinet minister appointed by the Prime Minister was included. So, I mean, जिसका डर था वही हुआ कि आप जो नहीं करना चाहते थे, you wanted to keep it free from the influence of political executive. It became absolutely that. And not only that, even if the quorum is not complete in that committee, the decision would be final. So to discuss all this, we have a very, very eminent panel of speakers today. We have Justice Lokur, Justice Madan Bhimarao Lokur. As all of us know, we see him as a fellow activist. He's there, he's the go-to person whenever there is a constitutional crisis and the civil society wants to discuss and you are looking for an expert, you go to Justice Lokur, and whenever he has the time, he always comes. He has been in many, many extremely important positions in the country. He has been Chief Justice of 2 High Courts of India, Guwahati High Court and Andhra Pradesh High Court, before his elevation as the judge of the Supreme Court of India. He has vast experience in civil, criminal, constitutional, revenue and service laws. He's taken keen interest in judicial reforms, computerization of courts. And how do I know it? Because we in Common Cause were trying to make sense of the e-courts mission, and we were very glad that he was heading the committee from the Supreme Court. Although, I mean, we could not get what we were looking for because he left quite early, and after that, nobody has heard of who's running the e-courts committee. And I think God knows, I mean, how it is being run. But at the same time, I mean, the process started with Justice Lokur. He has been appointed by the Secretary General of the United Nations as chairman of the United Nations Internal Justice Council. And his tenure will last until November 12, 2028. So, and there are many more things that he does, but we will listen to him. Mr. Senthil Sasikanth ji, member of Lok Sabha of Indian National Congress. He is a former administrative service officer. He's extremely well known, very well respected, not just in his state, all the places that he has worked in. He currently serves as a member of parliament from Thiruvayur constituency in Tamil Nadu. He secured the 9th rank nationally in the UPSC exam when he appeared in the exam, and then he has served as a deputy commissioner of several districts, including Raichur, Chitradurga, and South Kannada. He was renowned for managing communal conflicts and controlling sand mafia in South Kannada district. From 2009 through 2012, he served as assistant commissioner in Bellary district. He served for 2 terms and as chief executive officer of Shimoga Zilla Panchayat. He resigned from the IAS in September 2019 and joined the Indian National Congress in November 2020. Mr. Senthil also holds a Bachelor's of Engineering degree from NIT Trichy, and he joined the civil service. Before that, he worked as a software engineer. We know him as a grand speaker, and as somebody who speaks his mind, we hope that he'll contribute to the discussion. Mr. Ashok Lavasa, once again, I mean, the person I am so keen to read. He writes better than a journalist and an op-ed writer. He's quite a writer. I mean, this is his latest avatar. He's a sports lover. He's a traveler. He's a bird watcher. He's a former civil servant. Gujarat, Rajasthan, Delhi University, English literature, MPhil from Madras University, and Australia, MBA. As the IS officer in 1980 batch, Mr. Lavasa served in various capacities in his cadre state, Haryana, and in the Government of India. He was secretary in the Ministry of Civil Aviation, Environment, Forest and Climate Change, and Finance. After retiring as the Finance Secretary of India, he served as one of the 3 election commissioners of India. Overseeing the 2019 general election, he resigned from the post in August 2020. He was also the Vice President of Asian Development Bank in Manila, Philippines. But more than that, we want to know from him at some point of time, sir, from a book that is yet to be written, that what were the circumstances in which you went to Asian Development Bank, Manila, and what is that the country must know and does not know. And we have the last speaker, Miss Anjali Bhardwaj. She's a social activist. She's also a writer. She's a podcaster, vodcaster, a presenter on television quite often. And she's the founder of an organization called Satark Nagarik Sangathan, a people's group based in Delhi. We have had the first-hand experience of going to a few slums in Delhi with Anjali, and you would not associate Anjali with a firebrand leader of a slum community in parts of South Delhi. And salute to you, madam. Anjali's conviction to the fight for right to information is also legendary. She's there are many more things written, but I would like to say that as the convener of National Campaign for People's Right to Information, with whose kind of organization I have had the privilege of working with, and it is an organization which not only fights for right to information, but also keeps track of the entire movement and the appointment process of RTI commissioners, not just centrally in Delhi, but also in every state. कहाँ पे कितनी जगह खाली हैं, अगर आपको पूछना है तो अंजलि भारद्वाज को पूछिए, अभी आपको बताएंगी कि कौन सी जगह पर कंसिस्टेंटली बहुत टाइम से इंफॉर्मेशन कमिश्नर की नियुक्ति नहीं हुई, और अगर हुई है तो सही हुई है या गलत हुई है. And of course, she is also connected with the Right to Food campaign. So now this is like the introduction complete. I would invite Justice Lokur to start. We have a lot of time, sir. There's no dearth of time, but I think 10-12 minutes will be great. And impact of election commissioners' appointment procedures.
Yeah, thank you, Vipul, for the more than generous introduction. Yes, all the delegates here and my fellow panelists. I wish to divide my presentation in 3 parts. One is the past, the second is the present with respect to the Act, and the third is the future. Now, so far as the past is concerned, this was the Election Commission was discussed in the Constituent Assembly as mentioned by Vipul, and initially it was thought that they should have fair elections or free elections and no interference by the executive in the election process as a fundamental right. Now, this was discussed at some point of time, and then it was decided that let's have a separate chapter. Let's not make it into a fundamental right. Let's have a separate chapter giving importance to the Election Commission as such. So that's how it got taken out of the fundamental rights chapter. But the important thing is that there was no dispute and no dissent on the fact that there should not be any interference by the executive in the electoral process and in the appointment of the election commission. Now, we all know that the chief election commissioner was appointed always by the executive on the advice of the prime minister, and there were attempts made to somewhat change the procedure. The Goswami Committee report in 1990 suggested that the chief election commissioner should be appointed by the Chief Justice of India and by the leader of the opposition. There was a 70th amendment to the constitution in 1990 which said that the chairman of the Rajya Sabha, the speaker of the Lok Sabha, the leader of the opposition should form the selection committee. This was the only occasion when the prime minister or the executive was kept out of it. There is an earlier report of Justice Tarkunde in 1975. That report was prepared on the request of Loknaik Jayaprakash Narayan, but I have frankly not been able to have access to that. But knowing Justice Tarkunde and knowing that it was in 1975, I'm sure he would have kept the Prime Minister out of the selection process. But that apart, all subsequent reports that have looked into this, including the National Commission to Review the Working of the Constitution, which was presided over by Justice Venkat Chalaya, former Chief Justice of India. All of them have included the Prime Minister as one of the members of the selection committee. Now, in view of this, the idea of independence of the election commission was discussed and debated in all these committee reports. But going back to the Constituent Assembly, it was decided that there should be one chief election commissioner. It should be a one-man body, and he should have a skeleton staff, skeleton machinery as they called it, so that the election process could be taken forward. They did not anticipate too much work for that one individual, and as we know, in the elections that were held in 1952 and subsequently, there was only one chief election commissioner. There were no election commissioners. But the idea was that in case it is necessary because of the volume of work, then the president may appoint election commissioners, and they will continue to assist the chief election commissioner. That's why there was a distinction drawn between the chief election commissioner and the election commissioners. In fact, the Supreme Court said that it is not that the chief election commissioner is first amongst equals. There is a difference between the CEC and the election commissioners. Certain suggestions were given during the Constituent Assembly debates, and I think now I'm looking at the future. I think some of them require consideration because of what has happened over the years. Now, the Election Commissioners Act, the appointment of election commissioners, as Vipul said, first there was something about the salary and so on in the 1991 Act, and then the present Act came into force in 1993. There was an act in 1993, and then now the recent act, which came after the judgment of the Supreme Court in Bharanwal's case. Now, you see, the act says that there will be a search committee. The search committee will consist of basically civil servants, and they will make some recommendations. This is borrowed from the Lokpal Act. Lokpal and Upalokpal, or whatever the act is called, they have the same provision that there will be a search committee. That search committee will then make a recommendation to the selection committee. The selection committee will consist of the Prime Minister. The Supreme Court had said Prime Minister, the leader of the opposition, and the Chief Justice of India. But the Act said Prime Minister, one Cabinet Minister, and the Leader of the Opposition. The Chief Justice of India was not mentioned in the Act. Now, the funny thing about all this is that the search committee will make recommendations. They will say that according to us, these 5 people or 6 people should be considered, but the selection committee can go beyond the recommendation of the search committee. And they can say that, well, you know, some person who has not been recommended by the search committee can be appointed. And in fact, it has happened, you know, when an additional director of the CBI was to be appointed. At that time, they went beyond the search committee. That was a different body altogether. But they went beyond the recommendations of the search committee and appointed somebody as the additional director CBI. The Supreme Court said that, you know, there is some procedural irregularity in this, and they struck down the appointment of the additional director. Now, therefore, I think even though the Act may say that you can go beyond the search committee, it would be a procedural irregularity, and the Supreme Court may very well turn around and say that, listen, when you have a search committee, what is the purpose of a search committee? Otherwise, don't have a search committee, just say that, you know, the selection committee can decide on any 5, 10 people, consider them and nominate one of them. So the search committee really, you know, becomes completely meaningless. But this, like I said, is a part of the Lokpal Act also. Vipul had mentioned about the salary of the election commissioners. Now, the Chief Election Commissioner, of course, had the salary of a judge of the Supreme Court, so did the election commissioners, but that has been now downgraded to the level of a cabinet secretary. Now, one of the things people said was that, oh, you see, you can't change the salary because the salary of a judge of the Supreme Court is laid down by Parliament. So, if you want to change the salary of a chief election commissioner or an election commissioner, you'll have to go to Parliament. But so what? You know, I mean, they can always go to Parliament. If you have a brute majority, you can say that, well, we are going to change the salary structure. So really the fact that, you know, it is laid down by Parliament is really, in my view, of not much consequence. But what is of consequence is the fact that it has been downgraded from the level of the salary of a Supreme Court judge to the salary of Cabinet Secretary. Then the removal process, again, you know, there's a problem. I think there's a very, very serious gap in that. The Chief Election Commissioner can be removed only through a process of impeachment, as the removal of a judge of the Supreme Court. But there is no procedure laid down for the removal of an election commissioner. Right? So, except that it can be done on the recommendation of the Chief Election Commissioner. Under what circumstances can the Chief Election Commissioner make a recommendation is not known. Is the recommendation of the Chief Election Commissioner binding? Not known. Supposing the Chief Election Commissioner says, I don't want this person as my election commissioner. Government can turn around and say, sorry, you know, we don't accept your recommendation. An allegation was made when Mr. Dhanoa was appointed as the election commissioner and then subsequently removed. One of the allegations was that the Chief Election Commissioner, Mr. Peri Shastri, at that point of time had made a recommendation, and that recommendation was accepted. But the Supreme Court noted that that is not correct. There was no such recommendation made by Mr. Peri Shastri. So on what basis were Mr. Dhanoa and Mr. Sehgal removed, except that you know, they changed the position. So there are a lot of you know, problems in the actual functioning or in the actual implementation of the law. And we have seen over a period of time that you know, all kinds of things can actually happen even under the new Act. One of the issues that was raised, and which Vipul also adverted to, was the removal of the Chief Justice of India from the selection committee. Now, let me tell you a personal experience. Why the Chief Justice of India, except for the fact that he is the Chief Justice of India, may not necessarily be able to contribute in the selection process. My personal experience is this. Sometimes the government says for quasi-judicial bodies, they request the Chief Justice of India to nominate a committee presided by a sitting judge of the Supreme Court and maybe some, 2 or 3 secretary level officers to make a selection. Now, for one of these appointments, a selection was made. There were 2 vacancies. The committee presided over by a sitting judge of the Supreme Court made a recommendation. It went to the government, and the government said that, listen, there are 2 appointments, so you give us 2 lists. Don't give us one list consisting of 3 people and ask us to select 2 of them, or list of 5 people, I don't know how many was given. But you give us 2 separate lists. So they rejected the recommendation of the committee. Then the matter came again to the Chief Justice. This time the Chief Justice told that same judge that, this is what the government says, so why don't you give 2 lists? He said, listen, they did not tell us this in the beginning. If this is what they intended, they should have told us in the beginning. We would have perhaps given 2 lists, or we would have taken whatever view we want to take. So I refuse to be in the committee. That's what the judge said. Then the Chief Justice requested me. He said, now you see, this is what has happened, and please give a list of 3 people, 2 lists of 3 people each. I told the Chief Justice, I said, supposing we give the same names, A, B, C for position 1, A, B, C for position 2. It's the same thing as what was done earlier. Again, they might reject it. So what is really the point? So Chief Justice said that, listen, you do whatever you like. I'm appointing you, and they're appointing 2 senior officers who will assist you. We had interviews. First of all, I didn't know who were the 2 other persons. I'd never met them. As a judge, we don't interact with officers of the government of India. We don't interact with the executive. So these 2 persons, I was seeing them for the first time in my life. We had, I don't remember, maybe 20 persons or 30 persons or maybe 40 persons. I don't remember how many. The name of not even one of them was known to me. And when we had a sort of an interview, which was like a discussion, I was seeing the candidate for the first time in my life. So really, my contribution as the chairperson of the committee was, just to see what is their biodata, talk to them, find out if they are okay. If they are okay, fine, recommend them. Now, I feel that the Chief Justice of India would be in the same position. He is not expected to know anybody from the executive. On friendly terms that, oh yeah, I think you're a good guy, you've been doing good work and all that. He's not supposed to know them. So what can he actually contribute as a member of the selection committee? Okay, that is one aspect. The second aspect is, now, by the way, the recommendations that we made, I don't know what happened to them. Whether they were accepted by the government or not accepted, I have no idea. The other thing is that how do you actually do the selection process? In the present case, the leader of the opposition said that, first of all, the date was changed for the meeting of the selection committee. And secondly, I was given the list of persons recommended by the search committee 10 minutes before the meeting was to start. Now, how could he, make inquiries in those 10 minutes? Assuming he knew everybody. Put the Chief Justice of India in that position. If he's given the list 10 minutes before, he probably will not know the name of any one of them, and how is he going to contribute to this? So really, although I think having a person who is impartial, not connected with the executive is important, but we have to get a person who is familiar with the executive in that sense, so that he can make an independent decision. Now, there is also talk that there should be a collegium system, which is what the present thing is. Prime Minister, Cabinet Minister and Leader of the Opposition. I can tell you from the appointment of judges, where we have a collegium system, the government has taken the collegium system for a ride. Recommendations made by 5 judges of the Supreme Court, presided over by the Chief Justice of India, the 5 senior most judges, the government has kept it pending. I know one judge who was recommended for the Supreme Court had to wait for 8 months before his name was cleared. Now, supposing they do that for the Chief Election Commissioner, I know of so many judges of the High Courts, the 3 senior most judges of the Supreme Court with the Chief Justice of India, 3 senior most judges of the High Court with the Chief Justice of the High Court have made recommendations rejected by the government or kept in abeyance for 3 years, 4 years. Some persons who have been recommended have said, listen, we are withdrawing our consent, we are not interested. So even this collegium system, you know, is going to create a problem. And to an extent, perhaps it has created a problem, and that's why there is talk now of, you know, trying to impeach the Chief Election Commissioner. Post-retirement, just 2 minutes. Post-retirement, how do you prevent somebody from taking an assignment? We've had a Chief Election Commissioner who joined the cabinet as a minister. What do you say to that? Can you say, listen, you will not join? He says, I will join. What? I'm a free citizen. So, you know, these are problems that you will find. Now, the third part, what can be done. These are not recommendations that I'm making, but these are suggestions which came out in the Constituent Assembly debates and which I think need to be reconsidered for 2 reasons. One, the population of India at that time was about 300 million. We are now almost 1500 million, 5 times the population. There has been a sea change in the constitution of the Election Commission. Things have changed dramatically over the years. One of them is the kind of people that we have in important positions. Dr. Ambedkar, Dr. Rajendra Prasad had said that, listen, unless you have good people at the helm of affairs, however good a constitution may be, it won't work. But if you have good people at the helm of affairs and the constitution is not good, it will work very well. So the people are important. Now, the 2 suggestions which came out, one is, you know, the appointment process. Professor Shibbanlal Saxena had suggested that to keep the executive out, to keep the impartiality and the independence of the Election Commission, the Chief Election Commissioner should be selected by 2/3 majority of both the houses of Parliament in a joint session. Otherwise, like I said, every body, apart from the Goswami report and the amendment to the Constitution, proposed amendment, everybody has said that the Prime Minister, the Chief Executive, should be a member of the Selection Committee. So I think the time has come to now reconsider this. The idea given by Professor Shibbanlal Saxena was that he should be a person who is acceptable to all the parties, all the political parties. That was a time even when only the Congress was really there. You know, I mean, other parties were there, of course, but the Congress had a phenomenal majority. But now I think we need to look at this all over again. The second is from the delays that are there in the Supreme Court. The Act has been challenged, I think, in January 2024. No progress made. ADR has been making applications for expedited hearing. They said, yes, 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 we will hear it. Nothing has happened. And we've had appointments, you know. So what's the point of challenging a law and the Supreme Court says, well, you know, we look at it whenever we feel like looking at it. So that is one aspect of delays. The second aspect of delays is in election petitions not being decided. Persons who have been elected have been accused of corrupt practices or practices not permitted by the Representation of the People's Act. And the 5-year period is over, and the election petition comes up for hearing, and the court says, now it's infructuous. What are you going to do? This fellow his term is over. That's not fair to the people. Either you decide the petition quickly and say that yes, this person indulged in a corrupt practice and therefore he should be removed, or you say that, well, there's nothing wrong with it. Can you imagine if Indira Gandhi's petition had been decided 5 years later? What would have happened? So it has to be decided within a reasonable period of time. What was existing at some point of time was an election tribunal. I think we need to look at that all over again so that our election petitions are decided quickly. We have, I don't know how many, but we have at least about 30-40 retired judges of the Supreme Court, maybe 100 or 150 retired judges of the High Courts. They can constitute a tribunal. You can have 3 retired judges of the Supreme Court or 3 retired Chief Justices of India. I can name 6 of them immediately. Have them as election tribunals so that if an election petition is filed, it is decided as soon as possible, maybe within a couple of months, but certainly within a year, so that the people know that the person that they have elected is the right person or not. So these are 2 things I think we should look at. And election tribunals, by the way, were abolished by the 19th Amendment to the Constitution in 1966. But I think we need to look at it all over again because of the court's delays, because of the huge pendency of cases in the courts, because of the availability of retired judges of the Supreme Court and retired Chief Justices of India. Thank you. Sorry for overshooting.
Perfectly all right, sir. Just a small question I have, and that is about the appointments to other constitutional positions. What about the appointment to CAG of India? Or what about the appointment to, say, other positions? There are many, many important positions in CVC or, the commissions, the SC/ST commissions, and many other, UPSC, etc. So you think some scope for bipartisan, broader kind of way of appointment?
Yes. I think it's now become necessary. It may not have been necessary in the 1950s, 1960s. You had good people. You had excellent people. In fact, one of them, I think maybe Professor Kunzru or somebody, said that, the Prime Minister, Jawaharlal Nehru, can appoint anybody whom he feels like. But I know he's not the kind of person who will do that. Right? So I don't mind giving the power, or I'm happy, and not disputing the power of the Prime Minister to make the appointment of the CEC. So we were talking about different people at that point of time. We were talking about different circumstances, but I think now we need to reconsider a lot of these appointments, how they should be made. At one point of time, appointment of judges through the collegium system was supposed to be very good, but look what's happened to it now. So the time has come to introspect and rethink.
Thank you, Justice Lokur, and we'll come back with some questions later. So may I invite Mr. Sasikanth Senthil. Sir, the one question that I have in mind, and I mean just to give you a little bit of kind of context, is that the Congress party could have done a lot. This is a general complaint, and it did not do at the right time. Now, of course, it is asking the right questions. So do you think something could have been done? And second, if you could say something about Justice Lokur's suggestion of 2/3 majority of Parliament deciding the election commissioner. Thank you.
Thank you, Vipulji. Thank you, Justice Lokur, another panelist, and Lavasa ji and Anjali ji. So I agree. Of course, as Justice Lokur pointed out, the times are different, and we were an evolving democracy. Institutional attack is what we are facing for the first time. I think in our independence history, after independence, we have not faced an institutional attack to this level. I agree that systems cannot be allowed to be run by individual personalities. We have to evolve a system by which there is an institutional mechanism which is protected. So considering that in mind, I think it's time that we evolve these systems. For any democracy to survive, I don't think it is, to maintain rule of law. It is not just the votes or elections. It's about the institutions which referee these political competitions. So if these institutions do not remain independent, then there's no democracy. So it's ultimate, it is very important that we protect our institutions. So right now, the attack we are facing in all the institutions which are arbitrating this is like unprecedented. Today, right now, as we are discussing, there is a no confidence motion going on in the parliament about the speaker, about the no confidence motion against the speaker. And there was a question of who can preside this, right? Now we are discussing such fundamental things. And the constitution is very clear on this, that there has to be a person with a sense of the house if there is no deputy speaker. And we have not had a deputy speaker for the last 7 years. So we understand the context that we are right now is heavily against institutions and the democracy that we had designed. So this is a very good example of, just before 24 elections, how this was initiated. And after a Supreme Court intervention, when the search selection committee was formed, within 6 months, there was an act brought into the parliament with 97 opposition MPs out of the parliament. So, and Justice Lokur had listed out all the things in the act. It is like an India-Pakistan match where Pakistan can decide both the umpires, who can umpire the whole thing. It's as ridiculous as that. So right now, because of the institutional attacks we are facing all along, not only in Election Commission, in the Parliament, in our other institutions, I think they have made a pattern of making statutes and normalizing these things. That's what we have faced in even this Tribunals Reforms Act and other acts that we have seen. There are statutes brought to compromise institutional independence in terms of appointment procedures, in terms of tenure security, in terms of operational independence. All pillars of institutional independence is compromised through a statute. It is not just this thing. So that's what is happening to this country, and this is a larger framework that we have to see. It is not just about the Election Commission. Now, of course, sir is here with me. We are taught that it is not about being fair. It is to be seen as being fair. That matters a lot in the faith that people have in democracy. So whether individuals are having integrity or not is not a question at all. It is about whether the institutions have the capacity to remain independent in spite of whatever happens. So I think that is what we have to protect, and that is what is the fight, fundamental fight which is going on. So even though this political fight which is right now going on is seen from different prisms, I see it as fundamentally a fight in which whether we can protect our democratic institutions or not. In that level, I think beyond political parties, people who are interested in democracy and liberal ways should be, holding hands together on this matter. So coming back to this act, I just want to elaborate on the manner in which this was enacted, and the manner in which many other statutes are also enacted, especially during that COVID period, when the farm laws were enacted and other important statutes. One major statute, chunk which has not still come to discussion is these labor reforms, which is again a huge diversion from what we were. Just passed without all the opposition MPs. There's no debate on anything, and passed. After which, I think in 24, the CEC Arun Goyal Sabha resigned, and after which there was the first committee meeting which was in place. I think the government has maintained the 10-minute standard. To LoP also, they gave the list of the 6 possible candidates to the select committee just 10 minutes before he entered the chamber, and obviously it was a lopsided match. in spite of him giving a dissent note. Now, what will happen to the dissent note? These are the funny things which are happening. An LoP giving a dissent note that I don't agree with this person. And what is going to happen with the dissent note? Is there any value to that? Now, that's how the democracy is being run. The current CEC who is sitting had very clear indications of which side he belonged to. I don't have any qualms in saying this. And there was a dissent note from the Congress party, but nothing happened. So the point is, there are very, very legal ways of normalizing these things, completely anti-democratic activities. Should we sit and watch over it is a big question. Now, Parliament anyway is not being listened to. Today, one of our speakers was saying, today's latest astra is the mic inside the Parliament. The speaker has tremendous control, magical control over the mic and the cameras. You know, you don't, when I come out and see the Lok Sabha TV, I realize there's no opposition in the Parliament, you know, nobody is there. They are only shown when they are, you know, doing something frivolous. Otherwise, none of the main discussions or the protest or whatever is not being shown. So nowadays we have to really do long jump, high jump with the Parliament to come into the camera, you know, go run this side, run that side and show our face, you know, you can see some papers flying here. That's when you realize there's an opposition there. So this is the situation right now, and I don't even want it to go into the judiciary as of today. I will leave it to Justice Saab in the second round to speak about that. So I think this appeal on this has been pending for the last, you know, I think 1 year, 2 years, like many other important matters in this country. So I think this is not a very isolated incident. This is a part of a large framework of how our institutions are being completely demolished, destructed. So we need to see these things, and we need to kind of put up a very strong fight inside, outside the Parliament, in many other places. And I think the responsibility of people who understand the consequence, irrespective of whether they are in a political party or not, matters a lot. It is always the intellectual people who understand what are the consequences of such things, and their silence and their inaction is something which is a very dangerous thing. Other than that, I don't have to go into the details of the act, how it is limiting, even it has brought down the eligibility to civil servants, how it is giving lifetime immunity to these, the CEC and EC. Imagine lifetime immunity to somebody. Okay. You know, I can give hundreds of examples of the statutes which has happened recently. You know, it will be a stand-up comedy show of if I bring out all these. Recently they made, now they started naming it in a very nice, I don't know, very funny way. You know, so Shanti Bill and many things, to a nuclear reactor program and stuff like that. So this is what is very clear in front of us. It's a larger attack on the democratic institutions. And how are we going to fight this? Are we going to get into the nitty-gritties of each attack, and are we going to follow the bureaucratic style of fighting against this? Or are we going to do a larger democratic, people-oriented fight against this is the fundamental question. Otherwise, I think we'll have conferences after conferences on many other things, because, you know, it creeps very insidiously, you know, brick by brick, one brick after the other. So this is another brick in the whole wall. There's a big gaping hole already. So I think that is, I'll rest my case with that. Yeah, thank you.
May I just ask you one small question? I mean, you wear many hats, and one of them is of a former civil servant. So if you were to don that hat once again and tell us as a civil servant, what would be the best way, according to you, for the appointment?
Oh, for the appointment?
Yes. Yes.
You know, I think Justice laid out a point that the judge may not be the best person to decide. I kind of agree and disagree with him, because the reason why a person who may not know things is always good, because sometimes what they need to do is to raise a red flag against some personality. Like, you know, for current CEC, anybody would have raised a red flag. You know, if there was one more neutral person who is not swayed by the thing is there, it could have happened. So it could have been an easy way. Like the other way is to go into the parliament and ask the parliament to, for a mandate. That is a larger way. But I think we still have space, institutions, a combination of which can actually give a better result than what is right now, which is a free goal match. I don't think, I think the Supreme Court laid out panel was decent enough to at least put up red flags on people who should not be there. Otherwise, it's between degrees of excellence. That's okay. That can be done. But I think people who shouldn't be there should not become the CEs of this country, and that has happened.
No, that's an excellent reply. I think it's very candid. It's not diplomatic at all. But I think this happened once at the time of the appointment of a CBI director, when the Chief Justice of India said that this gentleman is not eligible. Because I think it was a serious question, and just said, I think it was Ramanna. Justice Ramanna. So just one red flag, and it worked. And they were scurrying. They were looking for, many people, and finally they got somebody who they had to remove after some time. So it's very interesting. And Mr. Lavasa, I mean, you are our star speaker because you are a former election commissioner, chief election commissioner. You would have been. So I think one of the issues that Justice Lokur raised was about the removal. I mean, I would have asked him the question, but I think you can take up that issue also, among other things, that, the process of the removal or the transfer of the election commissioners.
Thank you very much. In fact, I feel privileged to be in the company of Justice Lokur, Anjali and Mr. Senthil, and of course, Dr. Mudgal. It's somewhat ironical that we are discussing this issue today when in the morning the papers talked about possible impeachment proceedings against the current incumbent in the Election Commission. And I suspect that this could probably also be the second anniversary of the petition filed in the Supreme Court against the existing law. And we are 3 years down the order of the Supreme Court in 2023 March, when this whole cause of action, as it were, arose. I think both the speakers earlier have covered a lot of ground. I'll restrict myself to two things, but before I do that, I must thank Dr. Mudgal for a pretty comprehensive introduction, and also he created a sense of mystery about why I left the commission. So I think I should let the mystery out of the way in the beginning. When he said this, I was reminded of a qawwali which we used to hear when we were college students. Oh, qawwali, for those who understand Hindi or Urdu well, it was बेवफा यूं तेरा मुस्कुराना भूल जाने के काबिल नहीं. तो उसके अंदर एक लाइन है बड़ी इंटरेस्टिंग. हमने पूछा कि कल शब कहाँ थे, पहले शर्माए फिर हंस के बोले, आप वो बात क्यों पूछते हैं जो बताने के काबिल नहीं. So when we talk about the current law of appointment of Chief Election Commissioner and the election commissioners, I would like to deal with this subject in two ways. One is, what is the architecture and design as enshrined in the Constitution? And when I say design, I'm talking about the character of the Election Commission of India, which is one of the several constitutional bodies created by the Constitution. I think where the Election Commission of India stands out, unlike all other constitutional bodies, is that the working of the Election Commission is not dependent on the working of the government. Whereas if you look at all other creatures of the Constitution, including the courts, and the Comptroller and Auditor General, the Finance Commission, the UPSC, the tribunals, what have you, all of them, their working is intimately connected with the working of the government. But Election Commission, I think, is an exception, because what does it do? It prepares an electoral roll and it conducts elections. So its compact, as it were, and responsibility is directly to the citizens of India. And therein lies the distinction in the way the Election Commission conducts itself. Now, let's not forget that for the last 73 years, there was a particular manner in which election commissioners were appointed. We all know about the provisions in the Constitution. Justice Lokur elaborated on them. And whereas the power of appointment was given to the President of India, it was also said that the Parliament, subject to the laws made by the Parliament. So that is the provision in the Constitution itself. But without any law being enacted in this regard, except the terms and conditions of service, the system was functioning the way it has functioned. And in spite of the fact that this debate has gone on from time to time, it suddenly acquired steam after this judgment of the Supreme Court in March 2023. Now, what did the Supreme Court do? It said there is a committee in which LoP, Prime Minister, and the CJI are members. When the Supreme Court gave the judgment in March 23, there was no vacancy. There was no vacancy even in the foreseeable future, unless there was an unforeseen exigency. But the next vacancy was to come a year from that judgment. And of course, as it always does, the Supreme Court left it to the wisdom of the Parliament to enact a law, and till that law is enacted, this selection panel will be in place. Now, when I look at the draft bill of August 2023, which was presented in the Parliament, and the final act, which was passed by the Parliament in December 23, I try to comprehend the mind of the people who drafted all those provisions. Because after all, as a civil servant, I have been also associated in drafting many, many laws. So how does a law get drafted? Whose thinking goes behind the crafting of those provisions? And I can confess very honestly that I've been in this business for 40 years. I still can't understand what is in the mind of the person who has drafted these provisions, which have created so much controversy. So what was the difference between the August bill and the law which was passed by the Parliament? Basically, there were 3 or 4 things. The draft bill which was introduced, it equated the CEC and ECs to the Cabinet Secretary, whereas we all know that both under the Constitution, the removal process for the CEC equated him to the Supreme Court judge. And the terms of service of the appointment of election commissioners also equated them to the Supreme Court judges. So there were these 2 established laws, provisions, which equated the ECs and CEC to Supreme Court judges. Now, who thought that they should be downgraded and why? I don't have an answer to this. Why would a government like to downgrade the CEC and EC, which is contrary to the existing provisions?
Yeah.
You're not making new provisions. So that is question number 1. And again, interestingly, the second provision, which was both a recommendation in the past and an observation of the Supreme Court judgment, that the process of removal of the ECs and CECs should be the same. Namely, CEC can be impeached, but ECs could be earlier removed on the recommendation of the CEC. But the draft bill made a provision that they will be removed in the same manner. Please look at the draft bill. Now, quite interestingly, when the final bill comes, the amendments are introduced in the Parliament, the status of CEC and ECs is restored to Supreme Court judges. But this process of removal again is retained as it was discriminatory in the past, whereas the Supreme Court judgment made a specific observation, not an order. They only said that it is desirable. So, what is the relationship between the two clauses and why were they reversed? I don't understand as a lawmaker. The third thing is that the search panel was earlier headed by the Cabinet Secretary. In the final bill, the search panel is headed by the Law Minister. What is the purpose? Because after all, every provision, the way it is worded, has a meaning and a purpose. So what is the purpose? And the fourth thing, of course, is this controversy about the final composition of the selection committee. I'll come to that later. But before that, the immunity provision, which was again not there in the draft bill in August 23. It was inserted later. So where is the necessity of giving this kind of blanket immunity to people who occupy constitutional positions, who have been discharging their responsibility for the last 75 years? And I don't think there has been any situation in which their status has been jeopardized in a manner that they deserve this immunity. So why was this immunity given? Totally baffling. Now coming to the composition of the selection panel. You see, it is very clear, and I have said it in the past, I have written about it. I think this is a clear case in which government has scored a self-goal. It is not that there are no committees in which Chief Justice has not been a member. We have already heard Chief Justice being a member. The instance where the Chief Justice would have opposed the proposal brought before the committee is very rare. There is one instance cited about the Chief Justice pointing out the eligibility of the person. But as Justice Lokur said, what material or what information does the Chief Justice have to question the credentials of the people whose names are brought before the committee? The information that normally he would have is what is provided to him or her by the government. So where was the necessity for the government to remove the Chief Justice? In fact, it was a very good opportunity for the government to show to the people that we don't mind a selection committee with the Chief Justice. Not that I am in favor of that, because I believe that this system of the selection panel, it needs to be broad-based, and I'll make two recommendations or my suggestions in this regard. They are not recommendations. But before I do that, I again want to emphasize the fact that in the past, election commissioners have always been appointed by the government without any transparent process. It is this very method by which Sukumar Sen was appointed. It is this method by which Mr. T.N. Session was appointed, and Mr. Lingdo was appointed, and so many others you can talk of. So, is the process the problem, or are the people the problem? Or can you ever have a process which can guarantee the desired outcome, however objective we might try the process to be? So, but as Senthil said, perceptions matter a lot. So if you were, and in this case, this is the point that I make. I think this is one decision taken by the government because of which the image of the Election Commission has suffered. Because ultimately, whatever is the process through which any individual is appointed, you will judge him or her by their conduct. You cannot have a prejudice that because Mr. Sessions was appointed by the President of India on the recommendation of the Prime Minister, therefore he has to behave in a particular predictable manner. That's not the way people did in the past. So why have this prejudice? So, but because the government created a structure which clearly weighed in favor of the majority of the government, everybody thought that everyone who comes through this process is compromised. Now, I feel that although the matter is in the Supreme Court, that we need to broad base this selection panel and maybe have a fourth person who is from the outside world. I mean, not outside India, but from outside the government system. And I, for one, don't think that the Chief Justice of India should be a member. Maybe it could be a judge nominated by the Chief Justice of India. So let's look at a 4-member selection panel. Let's also look at the possibility of this panel maybe suggesting more than one name, 2 names, 3 names. And this is what I'm going to say, according to me, should apply to people in all high offices, basically constitutional offices. Why can't we have a system where the Parliament Committee actually has an open discussion with the candidates, and then they make their recommendations and the Parliament approves the way it is done in some countries? But I think it should be a totally transparent process. As Dr. Qureshi is very fond of saying, that he would have felt very, very confident when he was working if he had the backing of the entire Parliament. Not that in the past CECs have not had the backing of the Parliament. So I think there is a need to make this system broad-based and as transparent as it should be. But my personal view is that no system, no process will guarantee you the desired outcome. Ultimately, we need individuals who can uphold the dignity of the office.
Thank you, sir. This is absolutely one of the red flags that my organization, Common Cause, brought out at the time of CVC's appointment. I think it was Mr. Thomas, and we mentioned in the petition that we have nothing against the individual. We only are concerned about the institutional integrity, of the whole process. And I think the Supreme Court cancelled that appointment. So, I mean, we have, actually somebody has to bring it to the attention, and if the Chief Justice or whoever is the outside member, if there is a way in which you can bring out the objections or anything questionable or ask the question, perhaps it can work. I mean, and that's why, is that why you say that an outsider is preferable?
Yeah, in the sense that somebody who has a lot of credibility in the public, let that person be included in the panel and let it be a decision which is taken by 3 instead of all the 4 unanimously. Because I think aiming for unanimity in this is a sure way of making the system dysfunctional. Because one person can veto. So, broad basing it, and as I said that there is a lot of undue secrecy in the system. Nobody wants anyone to know who are the people under consideration. Some media might report, but in this case, I don't think media is also reporting that who are the people under consideration. Certainly, the panel is told a few hours before or maybe a day before that these are people you are going to consider. What is the harm if people know that the people who are being considered are so-and-so, and if there is somebody who has any adverse information, let it come out in the public. I think the system has to be strong and objective enough to filter that information.
Thank you very much. And also thank you very much for bringing in Sher o Shairi. May I also take the opportunity to kind of introduce my little kind of literary element in this. Ernest Hemingway has a novel called The Sun Also Rises, in which there is a tycoon who is being interviewed by somebody, and he asks him the question, "Sir, how did you go bankrupt?" And this tycoon says in two ways. One, it was going on for a long time, there was a decline, and then abruptly. So a lot of bankruptcy that we see in India's system today is bankruptcy which was coming for a long time, and we didn't see it. This is for Anjali, huh? And suddenly, abruptly, everything in front of us is very clear that this is wrong, this is wrong, this is wrong. So if you could throw some light on how we have gone wrong and bankrupt over a long period of time.
Sure, thank you very much. I'd like to begin by thanking ADR for organizing today's discussion, and thank you for having me on the panel. So the VDEM Democracy Report has ranked India at number 100 out of 179 countries. We have the distinction of being called and categorized as an electoral autocracy now. And I think it wouldn't be very wrong to say that a major part of the credit for that goes to the Election Commission of India. So I agree with everything that has been said by all my panelists. Vipul, when you're talking about where we are today, the slow and then the abrupt decline, I think the part of the context that we really do need to acknowledge is the terrible democratic backslide that we are seeing, which has been brought about in a very large part by the compromising of our institutions, which again, my co-panelists talked about. Whether it is institutions of accountability, institutions of transparency, or investigative institutions, we are seeing all of them being compromised, their autonomy being compromised, and I would see many of them being actually weaponized also. And one very important way by which that is being done is through controlling the selection process. So this is, I think, important to acknowledge that it's not really just the Election Commission of India and the appointment of the chief and the election commissioners, but it is selection of different kinds of bodies, whether they are constitutional bodies or they are statutory bodies. I mean, you look at the NHRC, look at the information commissions, look at the NCPCR, all these bodies which are supposed to be playing such an important role in our democracy, how are appointments being made there? And I think it is not surprising at all that we had this law in 2023. In fact, I would go so far as to say that I would have been surprised if the government had carried on and complied with the Supreme Court judgment. Given the kind of trend that we are seeing in the country, in our democracy, this was very much in line with what was to be expected. And I think what this is an attempt at doing, and which it is probably succeeding at, is really saying that we will have the facade of elections. We will have elections every 5 years, but who is going to be elected is in many ways pre-decided, because like Senthil said, the referee is being decided by one person or one party. And the kind of problems that there are with the law that was passed in 2023, a lot of those issues have been discussed. I'll just talk about one or two in particular. One is that it says that the appointment remains valid even if there is a vacancy or defect in the constitution of the selection committee. Now, the selection committee, as it stands today, of course, is the Prime Minister, the Leader of Opposition, and a Union Cabinet Minister. Even in that, we are being told in this law that if there is a vacancy or a defect in the constitution of the selection committee, the appointments will remain valid. And I want to say here that this is very important to acknowledge, because this is not a hypothetical situation. It has been used, and to my mind, it will be used. So if the Leader of Opposition makes a big nuisance of himself or herself going forward, it is very possible that the selection committee could meet without even the Leader of Opposition there. We saw it in the Lokpal case. So the Lokpal law says very clearly, no appointment of a chairperson or a member shall be invalid merely by reason of any vacancy in the selection committee. So for the first 5 years after the Lokpal law came into being, there was no appointment that was made. And eventually when appointments were made, they were all made without the Leader of Opposition in the Lok Sabha, because nobody was recognized as the LOP. So we've had that situation. It has been used very effectively, and I have no doubt that this will and can be used also in the appointment of election commissioners. The second, of course, is the lifetime immunity which has been given to the election commissioners. Section 16 of the law clearly says that there is immunity to election commissioners, protecting them from civil or criminal proceedings for actions taken by them during their term. Now, given the kind of concerns that had been flagged about the electoral rolls and the whole way in which electoral rolls in the country have been compromised, the Election Commission of India is squarely responsible for making those electoral rolls. If we are to go by this provision and no civil or criminal action can be taken, I think we need to understand where the wind is blowing. And we have now, of course, in Parliament an attempt to remove the election commissioner. How far it will be successful, we don't know. But certainly, bringing in Section 16 sends out a very clear signal to those who are sitting in the election commission today and emboldens them. It is this kind of immunity will definitely result in them acting with impunity. And we are seeing that unfold. The third, which you talked about, Mr. Lavasa, the terms of service, the status of the election commissioners being reduced, and you're wondering who's sitting and imagining this. Again, I think I was at least pleasantly surprised when I read the law, because just before that in 2019, the various tribunals and the information commissioners, there was an amendment that was brought to the Right to Information Act, and there was another law that was passed where their status was reduced. In the case of the information commissioners, the RTI Amendment Law of 2019 says that the tenure of the information commissioners will be decided on a case-by-case basis by the central government of India. The salaries and the terms of service, their post-retirement benefits will be decided on a case-by-case basis by the union government. Now, I mean, when you have things like that happening, it's almost a relief to read the the final law which has been passed. You know, I was actually expecting them to do that and be as blatant as that and say that we have this sword hanging on your head. If you're going to do anything which we don't like, then, you know, no pensions for you, or, you know, whatever else. So these are also the problems that we are facing. Now, I'm going to preempt the question that Vipul is going to ask me, because I saw him asking that to everybody, which is that what would be a good selection committee? I think that is really an important thing to debate. I'm sorry, but in my experience, I don't think there is an ideal selection committee. When the Lokpal law was being drafted, the National Campaign for People's Right to Information drafted there was a draft that we put out which we worked on. And I think one of the things that we celebrated when the law was passed, there were many problems, but one of the things that we celebrated was the composition of the search and selection committee. We thought we had it exactly where it ought to be. The search committee is supposed to be a 7-member committee. It is supposed to be very diverse. Sab kuch likha usme, that at least 50% people will be from SC, ST, women, etc. We did representation, everything. It went through exactly like that. The selection committee had the Prime Minister, the Speaker of the Lok Sabha, the leader of opposition in the House of the People, the Chief Justice of India or a judge of the Supreme Court nominated by him, and an eminent jurist as recommended by these 4 people. आप आज देखिए उस selection committee से कौन लोग बैठे हैं लोकपाल में. We have Justice Khanvilkar as the chair of the Lokpal. The reality is that when there is a political dispensation that is hell-bent on subverting the selection process, I don't think that there is anything that can prevent them from doing that. And of course, Justice Lokur has put forth a suggestion, and I think that that is worth considering. But it is very important to recognize that there is a limitation in terms of us thinking of selection committee, composition, search committee. Can people, you know, can the selection committee go beyond what the search committee has suggested or not, etc. We are seeing experiences showing us what the problems are. And as far as the desirability of having the Chief Justice of India on a selection panel, I think that's also something we need to debate. It's been already talked about by the panel. But there are at least 2 instances which again show that that can be a challenge. When Mr. Alok Verma was removed as the CBI director and an interim director was brought in, the Chief Justice of India, the then Chief Justice, Mr. Gogoi, he recused himself, saying that I can't get into this because it will not be correct. I am on the selection panel. If you have finally somebody who's appointed as the CBI director today, or if we had our dream team as the Supreme Court had listed out, who will we go and appeal to? I mean, if the Chief Justice is sitting on that panel, I can't imagine us getting the kind of hearing that we needed if we wanted to appeal against the appointments that were made. Again, in the Lokpal, because the Chief Justice or somebody who he has nominated is sitting there, when we filed an RTI request saying, please give us the selection committee meetings, the minutes of the selection committee meetings, it was denied to us under the RTI application, saying that there are high-level functionaries who are part of the Lokpal selection committee now. I mean, mind you, we get it for the Information Commissioner's appointment, where the PM and the LOP are there. Here, it's the Chief Justice or his nominee. Therefore, we were told that it's a high-level functionaries are there, we won't give you. So, removal from public scrutiny because we are being told that the Chief Justice sits there. I'm just putting some of these, you know, very real experiences of what is happening on the ground when we have the Chief Justice sitting there. I mean, we know of the pros. There are also very clear cons. what do we need to do? I think in the end, it's really about having proper systems of accountability and transparency. So when we talk about the appointment process in any constitutional body or even a statutory body, I think the most important thing for citizens to be able to monitor, to be able to scrutinize, is to have information in the public domain, is to have transparency. In the Information Commissioner's case, which Vipul you talked about, the Supreme Court in 2019 very clearly said that who has applied for the post, who has been shortlisted, has to be in the public domain. The court said that the minutes of the search committee, the minutes of the selection committee have to be in the public domain. The search committee criteria that were adopted, the shortlisting criteria that were adopted, has to be in the public domain. Some of this still doesn't ensure that you have the right appointments. Or when I say the right appointments, I am going to say that it's not about the person who's got appointed. It is really whether the process has been fair, has been transparent, and the person has got appointed in a non-arbitrary manner. And to ensure that, to my mind today, the only way in which at least some public pressure can be brought to bear upon the process is through greater transparency. The court also ruled in the Thomas case, the CVC case, and has said that there should be transparency. Is there transparency? Of course there isn't. We know what has happened with the election commissioner's appointment, with the CBI director's appointment. We know every time the LoP comes out and says 10 minute pehle hame cheeze pakdai gayi. I mean, forget citizens, who has applied and who has been shortlisted is not even being shared with the leader of opposition, who's member of the selection committee. So that is really where we are at. In terms of accountability, I think we didn't hear enough from the panel about the judiciary. But yes, I mean, we do wish that the judiciary were to play the role that we expect it to play, to uphold transparency, to uphold accountability in at least the appointments in these important institutions. What has happened in the judiciary when information commissioners were appointed after the 2019 judgment of the Supreme Court itself, this time in 2025, when the appointments were again made after the Supreme Court said make the appointments, we were saying, what about transparency? And the Chief Justice of India told us, you need to trust. In a democracy where we are taught, even in our school textbooks, that eternal vigilance is the price of democracy, we are being asked to trust. Too much transparency might not be a good thing.
Too much democracy is also.
So these are oral observations. Thankfully, we are very grateful that the judgment has not been sort of read down, the 2019 judgment. But that is what we are hearing from the judiciary. The matter has, on the election commissioner's appointment, has been languishing. The electoral bonds judgment came after 7 years. And even now, when we are thinking about this entire thing of, challenging this law, let me also say that the challenge to the information commissioner's downgrading, the RTI amendment that happened in 2019, is still pending. Not one substantive hearing has happened in that matter. We are sitting 7 years later today and having this discussion. So I think in this context, and the context that the Supreme Court itself is not open to being transparent when it makes appointments. I mean, Justice Lokur is sitting here. He was part of the collegium which recommended names of 2 judges for elevation. After he retired, a collegium meeting was held in which that decision was overturned. we filed an RTI request to the Supreme Court saying, can you please share with us the decisions that were taken in that collegium? The matter went up to the Supreme Court. Because in the RTI response, they denied it. We went to the Supreme Court in a first appeal. We went to the Information Commission in a second appeal. We went to the High Court. We finally went to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court, all it had to say was that we are not going to have one person, one woman, tell us how to run the collegium. We are not sharing the collegium minutes. So if this is how the judiciary is going to choose to run its own business, I think there are greater problems on our hands. But with that, I'm going to stop and happy to take questions.
We have, so as a general rule, when we civil society people talk about solutions, we start with transparency, then we talk about accountability, then we talk about justiciability. So that is how we move. But as Mr. Senthil very cleverly, but in a joking way, said that, it's a question of empire. CEC is actually different from other constitutional positions because here is a match being played in which the referee is being selected by one of the team members. So it's we do understand that RTI should be better appointments. All appointments should be good. But here is a match in which the referee is being selected by one of the players of the match. So I think, is there something special about CEC which should be recognized by all of us? If all four can answer one by one, I think it will be great.
Yeah, I think the sense of the House, the Constituent Assembly, was that the CEC should be above all this. That's why no executive interference, and that was going to be a fundamental right, by the way. So the CEC, I think, definitely, and by the way, free and fair elections is a part of the basic structure of the Constitution. So obviously, the Election Commission is on a pedestal.
Mr. Lavasa.
No, I think, this question doesn't have two answers. Justice Lokur has already given the answer. What I would like to draw everyone's attention to is that there's a very interesting chronology, and that is that when the last appointments were to be made, if my memory serves me right, the case was listed before the Supreme Court for the 12th of February. And to be fair to the government, they did not make any appointment before the 12th of February. But then the court, in its wisdom, decided to defer it to the 19th of February. And in the intervening period, the government made the appointment. So it is not as if that the court did not have an opportunity to give its views or verdict in the matter, because the case had been pending before it for a long time. So, as I said, it's quite difficult to fathom what is going on in the minds of people who are occupying these high offices.
Yeah, it's elementary, but the point that I think we'll have to also understand is that much beyond electoral politics, Election Commission also upholds the individual's faith on democracy. If we all agree with the power of the vote, and then that becomes the foundation of everything else. So I think Election Commission is the foundation structure on which the superstructure is built. So it has to be put on a different form, I think.
Yeah. No, I agree with everything that the co-panelists have said. We are an electoral democracy. The Election Commission has a very, very important role to play. The election commissioners must be appointed in a fair, transparent manner. But I still want to say, Vipul, that when we talk about the Election Commission, we must not talk about it in isolation. Because when finally there is pressure built on any institution unless other democratic institutions are doing well, they are standing up. There will be investigative bodies that will be used also to go after election commissioners and get them to do their bidding, whoever the election commissioner might be and however good they might be, and they will be made to join the ADB. And I think we need to understand that the Information Commission, the judiciary, and other pillars and other institutions of accountability and democratic institutions must also perform properly, and their appointments also must be important.
Thank you. So Justice Lokur has to leave now. So if you have any burning questions for him, you can ask. Keep it short.
Sir, I have one question.
Yeah, you have a mic there.
I have one question. जस्टिस चीफ जस्टिस चंद्रचूड़ उन्होंने ऑर्डर दिए थे जो कमेटी में CJI के मेंबर होंगे, तो ये होने के बाद एक्ट 2023 पास हुआ, तो फिर दोबारा प्रोमिनेंट लॉयर ने उनको मेंशन, उनकी कोर्ट में ये मेंशन कराया ये अनकॉन्स्टिट्यूशनल लॉ बना दिए, एक्ट बना दिए, इसको इमीडिएटली स्टे ऑर्डर दे दिया जाए, तो CJI सेम CJI चंद्रचूड़ ने मना कर दिए, दे वी विल नॉट स्टे ऑर्डर, वी विल लिस्ट द मैटर. After few days, he listed the matter not in his branch. He transferred the matter to CJI खन्ना, मतलब future CJI to be खन्ना, जस्टिस खन्ना की मैटर को क्यों ट्रांसफर कर दिए और अपनी कोर्ट में वो रिफ्यूज क्यों कर दिया स्टे ऑर्डर देने के लिए? अगर ये एक्ट गलत था तो वही CJI थे चंद्रचूड़, उन्होंने मना कर दिया, हम स्टे ऑर्डर नहीं देंगे, और वो भी प्रोमिनेंट लॉयर्स ने आर्गूमेंट किए थे जो इसको स्टे कर दिया जाए, लेकिन उन्होंने रिफ्यूज क्यों कर दिया, और उन्होंने बल्कि जस्टिस खन्ना को ट्रांसफर कर दिया, क्यों कर दिए अगर ये गलत था? और दूसरी क्वेश्चन है, इलेक्शन कमीशन एक एग्जीक्यूटिव की जैसा है, तो क्या CJI को उसमें मेंबर होना चाहिए जिसमें प्राइम मिनिस्टर एक हेड ऑफ द कमिटी है, प्राइम मिनिस्टर हेड बन रहे और CJI हिमसेल्फ विल बी जस्ट ए मेंबर, उस पार्टी में उस कमिटी में वो मेंबर होना चाहिए क्या? ये मेरा दो सबसे बड़ा इंपॉर्टेंट क्वेश्चन, बाकी दो क्वेश्चन मैं बाद में पूछूंगा, इसकी थोड़ा रिप्लाई दे देंगे तो अच्छा रहेगा. Frankly, I don't know what answer to give because जस्टिस चंद्रचूड़ ने क्या कहा, क्यों कहा, वो मैं उनके बारे में कुछ कह नहीं सकता. And I don't know. The second thing is important that you have somebody who is a member. The Chief Justice of India is a member of the committee. I don't know whether it works. He's not the head, but whether the Prime Minister should be the head. I think that's an important thing. I've not thought about it. It's a good question. Yeah.
Manish?
Yeah. Afternoon. I just, after reading so much and, writing so much and listening to all of you, so I thought, maybe time has come that whichever be the composition of the committee, of the collegium, you call it by whatever name you want to, do we think it would be better if, let's say, there are 5 names before that committee, the selection committee, and there's just one person who raises an objection to a name. Let's say, out of the 5 names, there are 4 names which are not acceptable to all the members. Justice Lokur would remember in the memorandum of procedure thing also, after the NJAC judgment, this is what was exactly, decided by the bench, that in future if there are changes to be made to the MOP, which continues to be a draft MOP, it will be all the 5 judges who will do it. So do you think if there is any, red mark against any of the names, then the least that can be done is for this committee, be it headed by the Prime Minister or whosoever it is, that they simply drop that candidate. There is a possibility maybe it will be a better idea than having...
Yeah, you see, as far as the MOP, Memorandum of Procedure is concerned, it provides that if the collegium for appointment to the Supreme Court consists of 5 judges, if 2 of them object, then the name will be dropped. But if one objects, then it will go through by a 4-1 majority. And recently, when some appointment was made, Justice Nagaratna was the sole judge to dissent. So 4-1 it went through. But if another judge had supported her, the name would have been dropped. So perhaps that could be one way of looking at it, if you have a broad-based selection committee, as Mr. Lavasa has suggested. Say if you have 5 members and 2 of them object, then perhaps that could be thought of. Yeah, can I go? Okay, sorry, I have to leave, but
So we'll
it's
continue
been
the
wonderful.
questions. If there are one more set of questions, done, sir? So we'll take.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. So we'll take the next round of questions if there are 1 or 2, and then we have to stop. Yes.
सर गुड इवनिंग टू एवरीवन। मेरी क्वेश्चन जो लवासा साहब से है कि अभी आपने कहा कि इम्यूनिटी इन्हें लाइफ टाइम मिली हुई है ईसी साहब को और उनके ईसी को, तो मुझे लगता है कि जो ईसी एंड सीवीसी ईसी और सीसी साहब हैं, इनको अवेयर करने की ज़रूरत है कि अब उनके पास फुल पावर आ गया है कि अब अपने तरीके से सही तरीके से सिस्टम को चला सकते हैं। इनके ऊपर कोई और चीज़ें नहीं हैं, मतलब इनके ऊपर अगर क्रिमिनल केसेस नहीं हो सकते हैं, सिविल नहीं हो सकते हैं, तो अब ये पूरी तरह से निडेडलेस तरीके से, फेयरलेस तरीके से सिस्टम को कर सकते हैं। बट ऐसा क्या दिक्कत आ रही है उनके अंदर, साइकोलॉजिकल है या कुछ और दिक्कतें हैं, जैसे कारण से ये अपनी फुल परफॉर्मेंस ऑनेस्टी के साथ नहीं कर पा रहे हैं?
Any other questions? Yeah. Any other questions? Yeah. आपके
नमस्कार सर। सर मेरा क्वेश्चन, जैसे आज सुबह से हमने बहुत सारे मुद्दों पर डिस्कस किया, एक तो इलेक्टोरल रिफॉर्म से रिलेटेड, लाइक जुडिशरी में कुछ रिफॉर्म्स होना चाहिए, या फिर स्टेट फंडिंग की बात है, या फिर क्रिमिनलाइजेशन ऑफ पॉलिटिक्स, या फिर ईसीआई में रिफॉर्म्स की बात क्यों ना हो। उसके बाद लास्ट में एक वोटर अवेयरनेस की बात हमने की। तो व्हाट शुड बी द प्रायोरिटी कि जिससे मेजर इम्पैक्ट आ सके। तो सर इस पर
थैंक यू। या
थैंक यू सर।
या
मेरा सवाल सारे पैनलिस्ट से एक ही है कि ये जो बड़े बड़े इंस्टीट्यूशंस हैं, जो कॉन्स्टिट्यूशनल बॉडीज़ हैं, 1-2 बॉडीज़ को छोड़कर, वहाँ पर रिप्रेजेंटेशन का सवाल बहुत महत्वपूर्ण है। और ऑल दिस इंस्टीट्यूशन आर प्रीडोमिनेंटली अपर कास्ट अपर क्लास इंस्टीट्यूशंस। तो उसमें दलित, आदिवासी, पिछड़ी जाति, महिलाओं का रिप्रेजेंटेशन कैसे बढ़े, ये एक बड़ा सवाल है। क्योंकि अगर वो इंस्टीट्यूशन अपने आप में ए लार्ज ओवरवेलमिंग मेजॉरिटी ऑफ पीपल को इग्नोर करते हैं, वो कैसे डेमोक्रेटिक रह सकते हैं?
So this is the last question, huh? Yeah, please.
Good afternoon, sir. Sir, as you mentioned, like some prominent Chief Election Commissioner like T.N. Sesson, Qureshi, sir. Sir, do you think that credibility of India's election are largely its institutional safeguard, emerge from constitutional or institutional safeguard, or largely from extraordinary leadership of like such Election Commissioner T.N. Sesson and yes, sir.
Yeah.
That's my question.
Thank you. Lavasa.
तो पहले तो आपने सवाल पूछा इम्यूनिटी का, तो दरअसल कोई शख्स क्यों वो नहीं करता जो उसको करना चाहिए, तो ये सवाल उस शख्स से पूछना चाहिए, इसका जवाब मैं नहीं दे सकता। लेकिन मुझे अचानक याद आया कि एक कहीं पे एक कविता मैंने छोटी सी पढ़ी थी कि निकाल लाए हैं पंछी को पिंजड़े से, अब पंछी से पिंजड़ा निकालना है। तो but so clearly, as I have been saying, and I keep saying it ad nauseum, that ultimately it depends on the quality of individuals. And this is what Justice Lokur mentioned, this is what Dr. Rajendra Prasad, Dr. Ambedkar, all of them said in the Constituent Assembly discussions, that, and even if you read this book called How Democracies Die, that is the point which the authors are making, that no constitution can provide guardrails which are enough to protect the freedom or the rights that are guaranteed by the constitution. Ultimately, a lot depends on the people who are managing that system. As far as reforms की priority की आपने कुछ बात की, तो मुझे लगता है बहुत सारे levels पर reform की ज़रूरत है, both in terms of educating the electors. I don't know to what extent the political parties and in what manner they are interested in educating the voters. Maybe Senthil can answer this question better. But as far as electoral reforms are concerned, my own limited knowledge tells me that the political parties probably are not interested in electoral reforms. At least there is no evidence to show, if you analyze the election manifestos of all the parties in the last 75 years, I don't think that there are many meaningful reforms that have taken place because they were a priority of the political party. They could have come from civil society organizations or the judiciary or ECI's initiatives. So, but I don't think political parties can claim significant credit for electoral reforms in India. There, of course, there are issues about financing. All those things have been done. It will take a long time to list out all the reforms required. But one thing which I think is a little concerning, and I've been talking to students wherever I go, the participation of the youngsters in the electoral process is pretty disheartening. They even in terms of enrollment, the first time voters, if you compare the number of voters enrolled in the 18-19 cohort and their demographic numbers, I think 50% of the people are not enrolled. And 2 or 3 places where I went to the colleges recently, so they said that, political parties, they don't understand the issues that concern us. So how are we interested in them? It's a debatable point, but I think a country where we say that 65% people are below 35, the participation of the youth being so lackadaisical is a matter of concern. On the representative character of these constitutional bodies, I think it's a debatable issue, and this is something which will require a very deep discussion. I don't think this has a straightforward answer. At least I am not equipped to give a definite answer on this. And as far as credibility of institutions, so if you look at the Election Commission itself, since we are discussing of the Election Commission, how has the Election Commission been able to establish its credibility in the country? I think a large part of what is underappreciated is the enormous amount of work done by the ECI in the past in evolving transparent and foolproof system. I mean, when I say foolproof, there is always some loophole or the other which can creep in. But I think Election Commission used to take a lot of pains in devising systems which are easy to understand, easy to administer, and it would drill those systems and processes in the minds of the electoral machinery through repeated trainings. That, I think, has been a significant strength of the Election Commission of India. Their manuals are very comprehensive, etc., etc. We can talk a lot about it, but that is one part. So the vast body of the electoral machinery, which might comprise 15 million people, I think they do a very good job in doing whatever they're supposed to be doing. But then there is a discretionary element, which is represented by 3 gentlemen, unfortunately, no lady in the present Election Commission, or even in the recent memory, I think There has been only one lady election commissioner. There have not been any. So what is the conduct of these three gentlemen is what creates the image of the election commission, because I think they undertake the discretionary element of ECI's functioning, whereas this vast multitude of people, they are doing all the non-discretionary kind of work which people don't appreciate enough. So it has to be a combination of institutional's integrity and individual's integrity.
Sir, any comments? Yeah. Senthil.
Largely, I think it's all covered. Only thing is that, of course, the idea of electoral reforms, of course, at least I can say this about Congress party, has always tried to maintain the idea of debate and discussions to be on as far as these aspects are concerned, especially in the area of transparency and many other things. Our manifesto has always tried to push electoral reforms in terms of public funding and many other things. Of course, there's a lot to do. But in the recent times, the single most aspect on which there has been significant reduction in people's confidence is this idea of electronic voting. And even today, if you go into any forum, there is always an aura of whether SI hai, hack ho raha hai, nahi ho raha hai. The Election Commission is still not able to fix this idea. So in that way, there's a lot to be done from the Commission side also as far as the perceptions, managing people's perceptions are concerned. Not just giving blanket statements and blaming political parties for their non-participation and other things. I think there's a lot to be done in terms of an institution, and that I think is very important, and all of us have to be a part of that process. About the representation, I would say yes, this is across the institutions and many other places. This is a fundamental problem in our society, and we have to acknowledge that. Many people don't get represented, many ideas don't get represented, and hence there is always a one kind of single scale merit system which is there, and I completely acknowledge that fact. Third thing is about institutions and individuals. I think the leaders were responsible for many institution creations, but it is ultimately, I think, institutions and their processes which matter. Of course, people who run it will also be an important thing, but that discretion for a person to run it the way they want it should be brought down as much as possible by strengthening these institutions rather than affecting that institutional mechanism. That's the way we can move forward.
Anjali.
Yeah, very briefly. I think I completely agree with you on the lack of representation and that it runs across our entire set of constitutional and statutory bodies. Supreme Court में क्या हाल है वो भी दिख रहा है, Election Commission में क्या रहा है वो भी नज़र आता है. I think the question on immunity which you asked, that if there is now immunity, what is the problem? There are several points to consider. And one of them is post-retirement. I mean, I've been looking at the videos that have been coming out of the Chief Election Commissioner landing in West Bengal, the temple run, and of course the waving. And the body language would suggest that he's going to file a nomination. I mean, it's really very, very disheartening. And the kind of things that, he has been involved in doing, from running the commission in a manner which is completely opaque. Form 17C nahi denge. CCTV camera, the issue of bahu betiyon ki privacy was cited by him. And the changing of Rule 93 too. I mean, the Punjab and Haryana High Court says that you have to give information to people that is required under the Conduct of Election Rules 93(2). And in a record time of about 10 days, RTI responses have shown that the Election Commission quickly went to the central government and changed the law itself, the rule itself, so as not to share information with citizens. So what seems to be happening is that rather than being accountable to the Constitution or the citizens of India who are sovereign, the Election Commission seems to be completely sort of supplicating and being accountable to those in power. And, you know, I think section 16, which you were referring to, you know, the manner in which signals have been sent out by those in power is that there will be action taken against you if you speak, if you dare to dissent, if you speak against us, but you will also be rewarded if you work with us. So all of this needs to be looked at when we examine the behavior of those who are sitting in the commission right now.
Thank you. So we close today's proceedings, the stakeholder discussion on electoral and political reforms, issues, challenges, and recommendations. I'm sure a lot of issues have come up, recommendations have come up, and for those who want to know more, particularly on political reforms, ADR has been doing this in the past, and if you go to the website, you will find some of our earlier reports or publications on the subject which would be very useful. One that comes to my mind was a small recommendation on political reforms in India by Justice Venkatachalaya, which was done for ADR quite some time back, and I think it is still available, but if it is not, I'll request my colleagues in ADR to make it available for anybody to. And if you have any other questions, suggestions, issues, you can also post it in the feedback section of ADR's website. So let me close this session also and thank the participants, Justice Lokur, who's just left, Mr. Lavasa, Mr. Senthil, and Ms. Bhardwaj. Thank you very much, and thank you all of you.
So, if I have the permission, I want to narrate a small story. You must have heard of Sir W.G. Grace.
Ji.
He was a famous cricketer. He was invited, when he was on the verge of retirement, he was invited by his village club to play an exhibition match. He went there. On the first ball, he got out. Okay. The umpire raised his finger. And Sir Grace walked up to the umpire and said, "Do you think these guys have come to see your umpiring?"
Excellent.